Right, Cowboys Ted. This is track, I suppose, 1 on the album. Pat, what does Cowboys Ted even mean? What's the crack there?
Well, that's the Father Ted reference you were going for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's got a whole bunch of guys weaved in from like your days as a kid, listening to people talking about sketchy tradesmen and such.
Yeah. And what?
Who the heck is Johnny Nixer anyway? Is that a real guy, or is that just a composite of people?
No, a Nixer is a job that you do when you're not paying tax and it's under the table. That's called a Nixer job. So I just made up the character Johnny Nixer because he does Nixers and he happens to be Johnny.
Gotcha.
And Johnny is also another word for something else, which we won't get into. Anyway, Cowboys Ted. So what's the lyrics here? Start of the day, the cowboy needs a big cup of tea. So that's based on an actual plumber who I knew. I won't mention his name, but he lives in Dunleary and he could never do a job without having a cup of tea. First thing he would do when he would come in the house, he would say, "Mrs, have you got the kettle on?" And if you didn't have the kettle on, he'd charge you an extra 50. That's not a joke. I won't mention his name, but that is not a joke. And then he would say, "Throw the gear in the back of the van. I can tell you now, horse, I'm your man." So the gear would go back in the van if the cup of tea wasn't ready. He wouldn't be as inclined to get up off his hole to work. Now, first job of the day, replace one light. When it comes to payment, don't be tight. That's a nod to electricians. And of course, the cowboy tradesman, the sketchy tradesman, he'll always go in to fix one light, but he'll make sure that you need to fix and replace all the lights in the house to make a few shillings. But anyway, and then it goes into the chorus, which is nice. I'm Johnny Nixer, the cowboy tradesman, and I'm your man. A few quid and it better be cash in me hand. Because obviously cash is much better than your credit cards or your checks, because they're no use to the Johnny Nixers.
Yeah, he can't work with that type of thing. It has to all be under the table, cash in hand.
Exactly. You can't be avoiding you have to be avoiding the revenue as much as possible.
Right.
Anyway, on to the second verse. Well, second job of the day. The owl one didn't give me a cup of tea, so the bill just went up another 50. Now that's something that my dad would say when he was working as an electrician. If they didn't do something like make up a tea, well, it just went up another 50 the bill. And that I did see happen with my own 2 eyes. So I'm not even making that up.
Shocking.
And I'll fix your lights on Tuesday, but I won't say which Tuesday. That's a classic chancer move. Right, yeah, I will fix it on Tuesday, but I won't say which Tuesday. And that's a nod to the Irish puppet, Dustin, who famously tried to get onto the Eurovision. But that's a whole other story. And then, of course, the tradesman then goes on to the carvery. Now it's off to the lunch for the carvery, not a single sign of poverty. Because during the Celtic Tiger years, the early 2000s to mid 2000s, all the tradesmen went to carveries. And what are carveries? It's just a place where you get food at a pub. And it's really good food, decent price. But because everyone had tons of money at that time, no one thought twice about spending 20 quid on a meal just for lunch every day, 5 days a week. So that's the crack there. And then on to the next chorus, where it says, no checks or credit card, they're no feckin' use to me. Again, you have to pay these people in cash. And then on to the third and final verse, which is the most complex one, I would say. Well, last job of the day. There's not much more that I can say. The man from the county council's after me because I didn't pay the planning permission fee. So the true chancer, the true cowboy, doesn't pay planning permission. In fact, they don't even seek planning permission to do any work. They try to avoid it. And now, how did this chancer get caught, this Johnny Nixer? This is a true story. Blackie Connors and the boys were cheaper than a skip. A skip is what they call, it's like a dumpster, right? Yeah. And the cheaper option is to get the travellers to come along, take all your rubbish from the building site, and they'll dump it somewhere else. Now, you'd want to make sure that all the rubbish that's been taken away doesn't have any paperwork with your name on it. And this I did see with a guy from Dublin, a plumber, I won't mention his name, we'll just let's say call him Mick from Killiney. He left a docket from his wholesaler where he got his pipes and all the rest of it in the rubbish heap.
With his signature on it.
Exactly, and the county council were looking for pieces of paper like that. And so that's why the docket with my name on it left in the tip. And that's how I, Johnny Nixer, was lagged by the county council fixer. So this lad, Mick from Killiney, he never actually was caught, but he nearly got caught several times. And I remember seeing him in skips, the skips that the travellers would take away, the dodgy looking skips, trying to find dockets, you know what I mean? And last but not least, the final chorus, Cowboys Ted, they're a bunch of cowboys, which is a nod, of course, to the great Father Ted series. A few quid, it better be the cash in me hand, no checks or credit card, they're no feckin' use to me. I'm Johnny Nixer, the cowboy tradesman, and I'm your man. So that is a detail of how the lyrics went. Now the musical stuff, I don't know, Pat, what are you trying to do on this one? Do you want to tell us?
Well, I mean, we just rock and roll through the first two, and I was gonna say that I like that bit where we slow down at the end of the day for that third verse or whatever, the last job of the day, you know. And it's just a fun song. It's just a little rocker.
Yeah, it's definitely a rocker. And the chord progression, I'm trying to imitate the Boys from the County Hell, the Pogues, and Ghost Riders in the Sky, Johnny Cash. I'm trying to imitate that.
So you can't go wrong there with them two.
No. And then, is there anything else about it musically? Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff. The slide guitar at the start, which is a subtle nod to Chicago. I did that consciously because we live in Chicago, so it made sense to do an overtly blues intro.
Yeah.
And then there's some lovely synthesizer for the solo, you know, which is, I think I'm trying to sound like the band from Liverpool. I think they're from Liverpool, the Coral, that's what they're called. That's what I'm trying to imitate there. But yeah, lovely tune. It's probably top. It's the top.
Oh, don't put numbers on it.
It's in my top 15 tracks. And there's 15 tracks on the album, so say no more than that.
Good stuff.
Right, that's the Cowboys Ted. Hope you enjoy it.